It is Civics in Chapter 10, Section 3, Voting. So, the importance of voting is to give power to the people. To define democracy again, democracy is the nation's governmental power is held within the people. Power to the people. Okay, that's a democracy. But unfortunately, only 13% of countries in the world have a full democratic government that gives its citizens the right to vote. 34% of countries have authoritarian governments, on the other hand, that do not allow its citizens to vote at all. We're lucky to live in the United States. We're one of those 13%. Countries that do not have are non-democratic, have citizens with very limited rights, freedoms, and they're really powerless to gain any real change if they don't have the right to vote. For example, in China's communist government, the government limits its citizens' basic human rights, censors all the freedoms of speech, and organized religion is prohibited. That's just China's. And it's been like that for quite some time, ever since China became communist. Chinese people just don't have a lot of rights. As you can see here, darker green are the most democratic countries, so the United States, or towards the most democratic countries. Most of Europe is democratic, and then you have like some flawed democratic places, and then you just have regions of Africa that's authoritarian, like China, and even Soviet Union, authoritarian governments. You can see there's a lot of them. Other countries such as Russia have authoritarian governments. They have elections and everything like that. Like, oh, we're a democracy, but they're fake. They're fraudulent. Even though Russia's not the Soviet Union anymore, they might as well be because, Vladimir Putin is pretty much a dictator. Look how much he wins in his presidential elections. He's like on his fourth term. It's just they pretend like they're democratic, but they're really not. The people don't really have a vote. Look, he won 76. Like no democratic election is someone hardly ever does someone win 76% of the vote. Pretty unheard of. The United States was founded with the core principle that the people hold the power, and the founding fathers knew the importance of the citizens' right to vote to keep that power. The Constitution literally says the first line: "We the people." The people rule in the United States, not some king, not some dictator. The people. American colonists had no voting representation in the British Parliament. Therefore, England just couldn't enforce any kind of rules they wanted on the colonists. American colonists fought the Revolutionary War for their right to essentially vote and govern themselves. That's what we want to do. We need to represent ourselves, make our own decisions. So people in countries all over the world are just fighting that same fight today to get their right to vote and to have the people's representation in the government. In Saudi Arabia, in 2015, women finally received their right to vote. So a lot of places around the world are still developing, still trying to get that equality. People are still trying to gain power. People are really proud around the world when they get their chance to vote. They line up in long lines. In places around the country, you get like this stamp on your finger, and you get that die that shows that you voted. Young people are like really into in other places around the world to get that chance to vote, to make that chance, get that opportunity to make a difference in their country. Why voting matters? It gives people the power to create change. Without voting, you get the same old. You're gonna get that same old politician, and you become stagnant. You need progress in the country. That's why the United States is always progressing. Americans like change. That's why the Democratic or Republican Party, neither of them always dominates. It seems like the power swings and switches from decade to decade almost, or can even be shorter time than that. Voting is the way citizens express their opinion in government. At the federal, state, and local governments, they're all influenced by how citizens vote um, on different issues because elected officials they want to enforce what the people want because they want to get reelected. That's their motivation for doing what the people want. If politicians don't do what the people want, they're not going to get elected again. Like, why were they going to vote for that guy? They didn't even do what they said they were going to do, and they didn't help the people. But people are going to vote for the people, for the candidates that they believe in are going to do what they want them to do and believe in what they want to believe. So that's why politicians in the United States essentially have to listen to the citizens because of the power to vote. And voting is just a responsibility of every citizen. That's their duty as the United States. And performing that responsibility keeps the United States free. If no one voted, government leaders would just have no care in the world about doing what the citizens want, and they just could do whatever they wanted and just benefit them, and you end up like China, communist government, that corrupt communist government where the people are suffering. So voter apathy, despite Americans having the right to vote, voter turnout in the United States is low. In 2016, only 59% of eligible voters in the entire United States came out to vote that day. In the 2020 presidential election saw the highest turnout that we've had. It was about 66%. It's like, yay, 2020 we had a lot at 66%. Where was the other 34%? That could have made a major difference in the election. 1996 saw less than half of Americans vote. So the term for citizens not voting is called voter apathy. Voter apathy is the lack of interest among voters, causing that low voter turnout. So the reasons for voter apathy, many people believe that their one vote doesn't matter because there are millions of Americans that vote. Why my one doesn't count? Each vote does matter. Elections of all levels of government sometimes come down to only a few votes. Example, right here in 2020, U.S. Representative election, Democrat Rita Hart only lost by 6 votes to the Republican candidate. In the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump won the pivotal state of Wisconsin, won all their electoral votes by a margin of less than 1% of voters in the entire state. That's tough for Hillary Clinton to swallow. After the election, many Clinton supporters were upset with themselves because they thought usually Democratic state Wisconsin would have been fine. They didn't go vote, and that would have made the difference. Americans should always vote because each vote does count. Here's just some narrow margins, only by President Bush only won the 2000 presidential election by only out of 6 million votes, only 500 made the difference. And some of these other ones, just such a small difference that separated the two. The reasons for voter apathy: Americans believe that no candidate represents them. They don't like any of them, so they decide not to vote at all. So even though the United States is a two-party dominant system, Americans should still at least vote for the person that best represents them out of the two. They might not be, sometimes people say the lesser of two evils, if you will. But if you don't like the two major candidates, then you can write someone in. Try to get enough support, write some in. This could probably work on a local level. Each ballot has a write-in section. You can write any person's name on there. Often there's a third independent party candidate option. If you don't like the Republican or Democrat, then vote for them. So voting for third-party candidates, well, a lot of people, third-party candidates can run on a third smaller party like the Libertarian Party or the Green Party, but they often do not win. That is true. People don't want to choose them because they often do not win. They don't have a chance to win. So they'd rather put their money on a horse that can win, so to speak. Um, but sometimes third parties do happen if they can gain enough support. Like the U.S. Senator from Maine, Angus King, he's an independent candidate. He's not affiliated with either the Democrat or Republican Party or any party for that matter. Independent and third-party candidates have won at every level in the United States except the presidency. And maybe next election, and maybe a third-party president would win. Who knows? But you need a lot of money to run for president, and running by yourself, it's hard. Billionaire Ross Perot did. Here he is right here. He did. He ran. He used his own money for campaigning. He did do well. He got about 19% of the total popular vote, but he still didn't win one state. Here's some other third party. This is Ralph Nader. You heard his name. He was famous. Some other guys that are prominent. Another reason for not voting is people are too busy to vote on election day, and they don't have the time to wait in that line, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes during major elections, the lines do get long. Sometimes you got to wait for over an hour. Communities are really trying to speed up the process, especially with this year with COVID. I thought where I voted, it went pretty fast. But democracy, for everybody vote to be counted, does require patience. Polls are usually open for over 12 hours during the day, so there should be, Americans usually work 8 hours, somewhere in between there, so Americans should have time in their day to go to the polls and go vote. So how to go vote? You can register online. Here's a link right here. If you're over 18 and a citizen, you can register here. Once you have registered to vote, then you have to find your local polling place and where it is, and you can go to this link here. It tells you all you gotta do is type in your address, and it tells you where to vote. Ways to vote is in person at a polling place, or if you're not going to be around, or if you don't feel like going to the polling place that day, you can fill out an absentee ballot. All you gotta do is tell them, go to one of these websites, tell them that you need an absentee ballot, fill it out, and you send it in, and your vote counts. So this was a picture of before of a write-in. See, you can pick all these candidates, or you can write in any name you want. Mickey Mouse always gets a lot of votes. And then this is your absentee ballot. So you just fill out your application for your mail-in ballot. You'll get the ballot, and then you'll send it in. Public polling places are usually held in public buildings where everyone can feel safe entering and casting their vote. Community centers, volunteer fire departments, public schools are used. You would want to put it in a place where people would feel unsafe, kind of like some kind of like private club or something like that poor people want to, any place that would be standoffish to a group of people. Votes are completely anonymous. You don't have to write your name. They don't on the vote. You just go up and you vote for who you want to vote. It's not recorded who actually voted. Like your name is not associated. And this is so people feel safe in voting whoever they want to. They don't feel like any repercussions or have to explain to anybody who they voted. It's totally private. Only person voting knows who they voted for. Most polling places have electronic screens where you cast your vote onto a drive, and then it's saved, and then it's sent to the county. The other is a paper ballot that is scanned and then counted electronically. So both are used. So both are. They used to have these. First it used to be like they used to count pieces of paper, and then they came up with these punch card things that like you pull the levers in the punch card things. And now we have our electronic plate, and it seems to work out all right. Polling places then send their votes to the county courthouse, and then they are officially counted by official polling counters. So this is what it kind of looks like if you go to the screen, you just touch screen, and you submit it, and then this is this is the one where you kind of fill it out, and then you scan it through this machine and it counts your votes. So these election campaigns, what they do, most Americans already know who they're voting for. So these election campaigns are for that 10% of voters that usually go undecided. Campaign flyers are very expensive. Advertising on TV and the internet, printing flyers and pamphlets all cost a lot. So these candidates fundraise and ask for donations constantly to help pay for this campaign, all to try to convince that 10% voter that make the difference in the election. President Joe Biden had the most expensive election campaign ever. He spent over $6 billion running for president. All the constant advertising and money spent is to convince that small population of undecided voters to vote for them. That concludes Chapter 10, Section 3.